You know, it's really fun to knock it out there long and straight, but especially being efficient with your club head speed and creating a lot of distance through that club head speed. But did you know that a majority of golfers are costing themselves a lot of distance off the tee before they even take the club back? So right after this, let's explore a few ideas right at setup. They're going to help you get your ball longer down the fairway. Stay tuned. Hey, this is Steve with HitItLonger.com. Of course, I'm on a journey to hit it longer and straighter off the tee, longer and straighter all the way to the green, because being pure from tee to green is a lot of fun. If you agree and you want to get your score a little bit lower and your drives a little bit longer, then by all means join us. Hit the subscribe button, like this video at the end if you got some benefit out of it, and leave a comment down below. All right, so in this video we're talking about errors in both grip and setup that are of detriment to your attempt at hitting the drives out there a long way. Let's start at the beginning. All right, the one thing I see in the grip a lot when I teach my private clients for the first time, I'll see some grips that are a little bit iffy. And I'll tell you, the grip can really cost you a lot of distance if you're gripping it poorly. Particularly what I see a lot of is allowing the grip in the left hand to run it all across the palm like this. If you've got this thing below the base of the fingers and you're letting it sit in the palm a lot, what you're essentially doing is you're kind of impeding this natural pendular action that we would love to have the wrists sending the club head through. So instead, I've got this laying across the base of the pinky, really the base pad, the bottom pad of the last three fingers. And I've got my index finger scrunched a little bit so it's running through the second pad there. So now that I've got this in the fingers, now I've got this unimpeded pendulum, kind of almost like a free hinge, that I can accelerate the club without impedance, or in other words, getting in my own way. And this is really going to help me up the club head speed. Another really common habit that the average golfer gets into is getting their setup, especially in the shoulders, to be a little bit what I would call over the top. So I'm going to exaggerate it just so you can see what I'm talking about. Now, if I set up like this, you can see my right shoulder is way out into it, over the top, high. My head's kind of forward a bit, and this is going to encourage a swing that swings down and across. That's going to give us our low pulls, our slices, and overall very inefficient when it comes to creating distance with your club head speed. You know, in a lot of cases, it can be easier to raise your distance through efficiency rather than through club head speed. So I want you to really pay particular attention to that. Okay, so instead of setting up with the shoulders level, or even worse, the right shoulder high, we'd love to get the right shoulder set a little bit underneath or lower than the left, while the shoulder line sits square to the target line or parallel to the target line. So the way I like to do this is establish the left side first, and now I'm going to set the right side under this way. I'll do it from the face-on view. So here I'm setting the left side nice and tall, and now I can come under with the right side, and you can see how my right shoulder is about 3 inches lower than the left. This is going to give me room to put my right hand on the grip correctly, and you'll see again how my shoulders are square to the target line. Another error that's pretty common among the average golfer is the amount of bend that they're getting at the hip. So I see some golfers, this is more common, some golfers are too tall. The problem with standing too tall and not having enough hip flexion is that it'll be much easier to swing on a plane around the body and harder to get down to the ball. So we will have to make the plane of the swing more vertical in order to match that we're trying to get down to the ground to strike a divot or hit the ball. So a tall posture definitely encourages a swing that goes more above ground, making it easy to hit it low and in the heel a lot, making it hard to get the club on plane. Now conversely, bending too much, something like this, happens with some of the people I see, not often. The problem with this is it becomes very hard. Yes, your swing is encouraged to go flatter and around you more, but it becomes very hard to transfer the weight and stay in balance. You've got too much weight over the toes, too much weight with the butt behind you, becomes a little bit harder to keep that equilibrium. And clubhead speed is really built off of stepping down on a solid base into the ground to create a brace to hit the ball. And if we don't have that balance as we're coming through the ball and you're kind of iffy here, then you're just not going to be able to generate as much speed. So ideally on the hips, we'd like to see a bow at the hips, and hopefully not from collapsing the spine like this, but instead just at the hips about an angle of 30 degrees. So something like this, that's about the right amount. So I'm just taking and falling over. My belt, letting my butt stick back as my body goes over my toes like that, about 30 degrees. You'll want to check this in the mirror often. All right, and one more thing in the setup that may be costing you a ton of distance. Stance width. Now, if you're too narrow, which is rare, but I see sometimes people that are too narrow, like this on a driver, you won't get the maximum benefit out of shifting the weight from foot to foot this way. So we're not going to be able to make our hips travel laterally to and fro in the backswing and the downswing quite as easily. So we'll be missing out on some potential for power. What I see a lot more of is when the feet are way too wide, something like this, when the feet are about 30 inches apart. Now the problem with the wide stance is that it becomes really hard to, again, make a complete weight shift over to the front foot from the rear foot. So let's see, I'm fine on the backswing here, but now as I try to shift over, see, I haven't made a complete weight shift. You see, I'm going to fall backwards onto my right foot. So it's a very easy way to get kind of stuck on the rear foot, unless, of course, you're cheating by allowing your head to sway. So now the only way that I can get from one foot to the other is to introduce some lateral back and forth to my head movement throughout the swing. So when your stance gets wide, this is typical pattern that happens, is you kind of try to make up the difference with head movement. I find that the sweet spot for me is about 14 inches or so at the heels as my widest point, which is about here. What this does is essentially put my heels underneath my hip bones. So if you got wide hip bones, you could be a little wider. If you have narrower hip bones, you're a smaller person, you probably only want to be about 12 inches apart at the heels. We balance and walk underneath our hip bones. So the best amount of power we're going to have is when we're able to make a complete weight shift, but keeping our head relatively centered. All right, let's see if I can put all these lessons into play here. I'm going to try to count them off as we go. Firstly, grip in the fingers. Set the feet 14 inches apart. Establish the left hand measurement as I'm bending about 30 degrees. And now the only thing left that I can mess up is if I go over the top with the shoulders. So here we go, square with the shoulders, and go. And that'll play down the left center. So hey, I hope that maybe in this video, one of these coaching points is going to hit home for you. Maybe you're going to pick up some more clubhead speed, I'm hoping. If one of these things in your swing or your setup is not the way I've described, maybe you can fix it and become longer off the tee. Hey, Hey, thanks so much for watching. I'm Steve. I hope you'll go to my website, hititlonger.com, and check it out. Thanks to Golf Development Complex in Moore Park, California. A beautiful day, as always. Come out and join us sometime. And as always, I'll either see you in the next video or I'll see you longer and straighter down the fairway. Take care.